Welcome to the Overflow Worship Podcast, where we serve and support leaders so you can serve and support your local church.
Before we get to today's episode, I wanted to share something with you. Did you know that when you leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, it actually helps us reach more people? Well, if you didn't, that is the truth. And so we really need your help. And we're actually going to sweeten the deal for you. So here's all you need to do. Head over to Apple Podcasts to our show page and scroll all the way down to the bottom and just leave us a review. Tell us what you like about the Overflow Worship Podcast. And if you do, between now and February 13th, 2023, you will be entered to win our brand new course, the Overflow Worship Leaders Startup Toolkit. It's an online self-paced video course for new or newly positioned worship leaders. And we're going to do a drawing of all the people who leave a review, and one of you are going to win that course. It's $199 value, so it's a pretty big giveaway. So if you would like to be entered to win that course, all you got to do is leave a review, and we will pick a winner and announce it on our social media at Overflow Worship Official. So make sure that you're following us on Instagram, because that's where we're going to announce it, Overflow Worship Official. All right, here we go with today's episode. Hey everybody, welcome to the Overflow Worship Podcast. I'm your host, Andrea Olson. All right, well, we're almost all the way through January, the first month of 2023. I hope that it's treating you well. And hey, if you are a new listener to the Overflow Worship Podcast, welcome. I'm so glad that you're here. And for those of you who have been faithful listeners for the last several years, guys, this is episode 90. Can you believe it? It's hard for me to believe that, but 90 episodes over the last few years. And I feel like we're just kind of getting started. There's amazing things to come. And we're approaching our 100th episode, and we're planning some fun things for that. So you guys just stay tuned. It's going to be awesome. Stick with me. Okay, so recap. Last episode, episode 89, if you missed it, go back and check that out. We'll link it in the show notes so that you can go back and catch up on that. We talked about the one thing, right? In regards to planning and goal setting for your worship team and for the ministry that God has called you to, what's the one thing? And we talked about Ephesians 1:18, let the eyes of my understanding be enlightened. And I challenged you to pray that scripture over your time with the Lord and to go before the Lord and ask Him, God, I've got my plans, I've got my ideas, I've got my things that I want to do, but what is the one thing that you want me to focus on this year? And I talked about, several things within that. So before I recap the whole thing here, just go back and listen to it because it was a fun episode. It was a lot of great things in there. And then we also talked about Andy Stanley's best question ever. So if you're curious about what that is, go back. Check it out. Okay, so today, in light of New Year's and it's still January and all the things, I want to talk a little bit about my personal goals for the year. And hopefully this can give you some encouragement as you are setting yours, all right? So I really believe that this whole concept of one thing is important. And I got to tell you what, okay? Anybody who knows me well and is listening to this podcast is laughing because they know that this hasn't always been my mantra. I typically tend to set goals that are pretty aggressive, and there's too many of them, and I set them as if there's 48 hours in a day, and there's not. There's 24, and that's what everybody gets. And so then, I make them too aggressive, and if I do achieve them, I'm exhausted on the other side. And that's kind of what 2022 looked like. There was a lot of amazing things and a lot of huge wins, but there was a lot of things that, I wish that I would have done a little bit differently. And I wish that, I would have slowed the wheel a little bit so that I could catch my breath, because it got to a certain point where I was so far along the line that I couldn't stop it. And I just had to suck it up and get through it and, recover on the other side. And, I also have always had the mantra that, and my husband and I have this together, where there has to be an end date. And so we have lived by that. And I knew that at the end of the year, that was my end date. And it had to be. I had to put an end date on some of those huge projects and huge goals and some of those things that, just had that completion so that I could take a breath. And so we did have that in place, but I do think in hindsight, I should have had the end date a little bit sooner, and I should have put a stop to some things or delayed some things in order to protect myself and my family. And so this year, I have been really convicted by this whole concept of one thing. And for me, it's about simplifying. It doesn't mean that we won't do a lot of things, right? But it does mean that I'm simplifying the approach, and I'm simplifying how vast and wide my goal setting goes. Okay. And so in my mind, I see like a tree diagram. You've got your main concepts up at the top, and then everything kind of like filters out below it. Well, I'm not going to have so many micro things below. There will always be those that pop up because you need A, and then it gets you to B, and then you need to get to C. And I understand that, but there is a certain aspect of not having too many things up top. And so that once you start to get into the micros, that you don't have 100 micros in 4 different places. And then it's super overwhelming. So one thing, all right, I've been thinking a lot about this and thinking about the year and what's the thing that I'm going to focus on in regards to my personal life. Well, I think that the one thing for my personal life is freedom. Okay. And that's a really broad concept. I understand that. But there are a lot of things for me that I think have held me in a little bit of bondage, or have held me back from stepping into what I really feel like God has called me to, or what I even internally, like allowing myself to fully throw myself into these things because I've felt insecure, or I felt worried, or I've just been spread too thin and far and wide that I couldn't. And so this year, it's about freedom. It's about giving myself the freedom. And God has really solidified this in my heart, that He wants me to have that freedom to step into the things that He has called me to, like fully, with my entire self and my entire heart. And so with that, what does that look like in regards to, all the areas of my life? Well, okay, let's talk personally. I am committed this year to being in growth situations that sometimes might cause me to be uncomfortable. So that means surrounding myself with people who are pushing me and challenging me to grow. So for example, I have been working with a functional medicine dietitian actually for the last few months, and it has been so good because I wanted to figure out what was going on with my body and how I could feel like the best version of myself and show up as the best version of myself every day for my family, for my staff, for the ministry that God has called me to. And there have been some things that I've learned that have been really hard, and some things that I've had to change that have been really hard, but I'm done fighting it. And you know what? The more that I learn, the more I see that, she is pushing me and challenging me to grow and become the best version of myself for my health. And it's not about, more exercise, less sugar, and, those kinds of things. It's actually about making sure that the things that I'm putting in my body are allowing me to show up to do what I'm called to do each day. And so it's been really revolutionary, and that is something that is pushing me towards freedom, right? It's pushing me towards freedom. And so in my personal life, I am just challenging myself to grow, and that's pushing me towards freedom. And then professionally, so within ministry and within Overflow Worship and the music that I release and our online community, our membership site, the courses we release, all of those kinds of things, well, I need to make sure that at the very core of everything, that I'm doing the same thing there as well, that I am putting myself in a position, I'm putting myself in a spot where I am challenged to grow. I am pushing the limits and challenged to grow, because that ultimately is getting me to the point of freedom to be who I know that God has called me to be. We are going to take a quick pause from today's episode because I have a free gift for you. Leading worship is a big deal. And as much as the responsibility thrills you, it also can be a little daunting, right? And I know because I've been there. As someone who's led worship for more than 20 years, I know how stressful prepping for the weekend set can be because let's face it, Sunday's always coming. So I've developed a checklist that I go through every single time I'm preparing a set list for an upcoming service, and it really helps a lot. I feel confident, I feel prepared, it saves me time because let's face it, whether you're paid or volunteer, you're probably spending precious evening time working because you're just trying to fit it all in. And so this helps you work smart and saves you time. And most importantly, it just helps me make sure that nothing falls through the cracks. It's helped me for 20 years and I'm giving it to you for free. So click the link in the show notes or head on over to overflowworship.com/setlist-checklist to get yours today. All right, back to today's episode. Why am I sharing this with you? Typically, I don't go and veer off of the concept of worship tips and tools and all of that. I don't talk a lot about my personal life, and I want to do that with you more this year, so you can get a glimpse into what life is like for us as the Olsen family in Minnesota. But the reason I'm telling you this is because this concept of one thing is not only limited to the church and the ministry. It also applies to your life personally. And they are all woven together, right? And so as you bring this before the Lord and really surrender it to Him and ask Him to show you what is the thing He wants you to focus on this year, you're going to see how that thread is woven as a common thread through every aspect of your life, right? They're not going to contradict each other. It's not like the one thing at church is to do as much as possible and work extra hours, okay? And then your one thing as in your family life is to spend more time at home with your family. That's not going to work. God's not going to lead you to contradictory behavior like that. So really come before Him and surrender to Him and say, okay, God, what is the one thing? And show me the common thread, how these are all woven together. And for me, it's freedom in every area of my life. And that looks like continuing to push myself and challenge myself to grow in every area of my life. And that means that I am surrounding myself with people who will help me do that. And that also means, maybe not being with people as much who don't push me to do that. And that's not because I don't like them or anything like that. It's because I know that there's only 24 hours in a day and I have to focus on, the things that God has put in my heart. And you know what? Not everybody is going to understand that, and that's okay. Not everybody's going to agree with it, and that's okay. It's not my favorite thing, right? I mean, I know there's other listeners out there who are like me, that's like, can we just all be happy and agree and like each other? And that's just not reality. I think that we can disagree and still be loving towards one another, but that's a whole different conversation. And we've talked about that in the past before in regards to, leadership and worship and everything like that. But anyways, I see that common thread. And so part of that for me is surrounding myself with the people who are pushing me and challenging me. So with this dietitian that I'm working with, or, finding somebody who will work out with me, right? Or some sort of app or something, or trainer or something like that, if that works for you. And then also for me, it's making sure that I am growing and taking in content or courses or whatever, or conferences, so that I am pushing myself to grow and become better for the people that I serve through Overflow Worship and for the staff that I lead at Overflow Worship, because they need me to show up as the best version of myself. And they need me to be that free person who is fully invested in and fully showing up as who God has called me to be every day, so that I can also serve them well and support them well. And so it's this really cool thing that God has revealed to me, that there's a common thread. There's a common thread in all of it. So what does that look like for you? How does this apply to your life? Well, first of all, I think that the concept of community and the concept of surrounding ourselves with people who challenge us to be the best version of ourselves is not just for one person. It's for all of us. It's not just for me, it's for all of us. And so you know what? I challenge you I challenge you to find community that pushes you to grow. Because here's the thing, you're in leadership, right? So you might have community with your worship team, which we've talked about that over and over and over again. We've talked about the importance of cultivating community, and that's so important. But you as the leader are going to be on the path to burnout or disaster or whatever you fill in the blank if you do not have people surrounding you that are pushing you to grow. And so you need a mentor. Even if you're 60, you still need somebody who's gone before you and has that hindsight and can say, hey, you know what? I see this coming. You don't, but I do because I've been there. And so I challenge you to seek that out, to seek out other people who are in the same trenches as you are, who have been doing it longer than you or have maybe gone before you. Maybe they're not necessarily a whole ton older than you, but they've been in your shoes already and they can give you some insight into how to navigate a struggle that you're facing or a situation that you're walking through. Because we all need that. So find that community, all right? And here's the thing, guys. We at Overflow Worship have been working so hard to provide that type of community for you through our in-person events, through the Overflow Worship Conference, and through the podcast, because we want you to be known. We want you to be seen. We want you to know that you are noticed. And you may not know this, but we actually have just finished a brand new, complete revamp. It's like a renovation. It's actually really not a renovation. It's a brand new build from the ground up of our online membership site. And you might be wondering, what in the world is a membership site for worship leaders? And I am going to tell you just a little bit about it because there's something super unique on the inside. So once you become a member of our site, it's called Overflow Worship Leaders Online. And once you're a member, you will have access to all of the courses we've released, including the Startup Toolkit that we released in the fall. You will also have access to our ever-growing vault of on-demand trainings. So I'm talking a lot of the previous conference sessions that we've recorded, special sessions that I've done exclusively just for the members of this community, and also live trainings from special guests that we bring in. There's a monthly member meeting where we all meet on Zoom together and just problem solve and strategize, encourage one another, pray together. You have access to all of that. But beyond that, really the most amazing thing is we have a custom created community platform. This is not like a Facebook group, okay? This is customized to the platform, to the website, and it's designed to help you do exactly what I'm talking about in rubbing shoulders with other people who are in the same boat as you, who are in the trenches with you, who are serving in churches just like yours. And you know what? You're going to find some that have gone before you. You're going to find somebody who has been where you are and who, you can hop in to the chat and you could say, guys, this is what I'm facing. I need help. And you're going to have people jump in and come alongside of you and say, oh, I've been there. This is what we did. Or how can I pray for you? I would love to support you. This is a safe environment, a safe community where you can cultivate relationship with other worship leaders just like you, because I wish I would have had that. I wanted that. And I couldn't always find it in person. And so we've cultivated that in person at the conference, but now you get to take that with you wherever you go. And so I challenge you to jump in and give it a try. Maybe this new year you're looking for something. You're like, and guess what? The membership can check both of those boxes for you. It can challenge you to grow because there's training, and it can give you supportive, growth-minded community. So there you go. Check and check. I encourage you to go to overflowworshipleaders.com and just check it out. It is a really exciting, brand new platform. If you were in the old site, it's nothing like that. If you were a member of Overflow Resource, we've rebranded, we've renamed, we've decommissioned that website, and now it's overflowworshipleaders.com, and we are ready to see you on the inside. And I say all of that to tell you that my heart is that you would know that we truly care. I have invested countless hours and so many dollars and so much blood, sweat, and tears into this because I want it to be a place for you to come. I want it to be a place for you to grow, and I want it to be helpful and relevant to the challenges and problems that you are facing. So we listen. So if you're a member and you hop in and you're like, hey, I'm struggling with this, or is there a tutorial for this? If there's not, we're going to put it on the list of consideration for getting that in there for you, because we want it to be helpful to you and serve you as a worship leader in a volunteer-supported church. So we get it. We get you. We understand you. And we've created this for you. So join me this year. Maybe you want to join me on this journey. Maybe you want to, show up as the best version of yourself. And you want to be surrounded with people who help you to do that, who challenge you to do that. And I guarantee you'll find that in this community. So maybe you hear my kids giggling and playing in the background. We're in the middle of a blizzard here and it's too cold to go outside. And so they are just getting a little stir crazy. But I think they're playing a really riveting game of something with Daddy. So I am going to wrap this podcast up so I can go join them. And I just encourage you that, you know what? We're here for you. We're praying for you. And we'd love to have you join us on the inside of our brand new membership at overflowworshipleaders.com. And no matter what, we love you guys and we're here for you to support you. You can always reach out to us, email info@overflowworship.com or on socials at Overflow Worship Official. We would just love to hear from you and encourage you to reach out anytime. All right, that wraps up episode 90 of the Overflow Worship Podcast. I hope that you walked away with some practical tools and some thought-provoking ideas of how to think about your one thing for this year. I've told you mine. Maybe it stirs something in you and hopefully sets you on the journey to finding that one thing that God has for you this year. And once again, remember Ephesians 1:18. May the eyes of your understanding be enlightened. Until next time, be blessed. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode of the Overflow Worship Podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, please hit subscribe so you never miss another one. And we would be so grateful if you would leave us a rating and a review on Apple Podcasts. Tell us what you love about the podcast, because your reviews truly do help us reach more people. And don't forget, we have a free gift for you, my checklist for planning a successful set list every single time is yours for free. Just visit overflowworship.com/setlist checklist. Once again, thank you so much for listening.